Hi guys, and welcome back to the Rake. Today we don't have any special guests. It's just Marle and I, and we are going to discuss some of the hot topics that have occurred over the past week or so. But really, this started over a month ago when WSOP and GG announced that they would be holding the real main event, a 10K buy-in online where there would be a USA part that was just the players that were allowed to play in New Jersey and in Nevada. And then there was a GG part that was the rest of the world. The way that it was going to work was they'd be in separate pools. We can't play together. And then the winner from each, they'd have a live final table at the Rio for the USA one and a live final table in Rosvadov for the Euro version. And the winner of each would play heads up about a week after that concluded for a $1 million added prize from GG for not just the money, but also World Series Poker bracelet and the title of 2020 World Champion. So that was a mouthful, but how's it going, Marle? And did I miss anything?
No, but you did sputter a little bit when you said that it was a $1 million added for the heads up match. That was a little, I want to make sure they hear that. But
my internet might be crappy.
So yeah, I've just been spending the last couple of days really getting up to date on all the stuff that's been coming out on this story. It's still coming out so much that when this airs, I'm sure that we'll have missed some stuff that because it changes by the minute. But yeah, it's just been a crazy whirlwind event when they first announced this a month ago or so. Of course, thinking of Stoyan, who of course won the 5K other main event earlier this year on GG. We're gonna get to his thoughts on this later in the podcast, but and then we also had the COVID controversy. So
yeah, that's the big one.
That's the big one. So there's been some controversy in this, but before we get into that, let's just maybe do a brief overview of where we stand now with the tournament. Who won each side and what's the next steps?
Yeah, so I'll cover the GG side. The GG side played out in Rosvadov with almost no issues. I can't really say no issues. No one got COVID. However, China's Pei Sun opted not to travel and finished in 9th place for 75K. So he forewent his chance. I was like, foregone. Nope, I'll get there. Forewent, I guess if that's a word, his chance of winning the $1,550,000 and instead took 75K. I'm not clear on if China had some travel ban or what happened, but thankfully I didn't hear anything about him having COVID. I think that either he wasn't able to travel or opted not to travel because he didn't want to risk it. But yeah, that was the GG side, and Damien Salas won for $1.55 million, and he is looking forward to the heads-up match, but he actually can't play the heads-up match. They had to postpone it because there were some kind of travel restrictions where if you had been in Europe over the past 15 days, I believe, you couldn't travel to the US. So wherever he's been over the last, 2 weeks, he just had to stay a couple more days. And so they just pushed back the heads up match to just 2 more days or something like that. So he is going to get to play. There's no permanent ban. That would have been just a shit show. If there was like a ban where he can't come to the US, what do they do? Just award the US player $1 million? I don't know.
Yeah. I really don't know. But so on the US side, this just happened this week. Joseph, I think you pronounce his name Hebert, won for $1.55 million. He'll be playing Damien heads up for the $1 million added. And just a little side note on Joseph, such a nice guy, Southern Belle. He has been working in and out of restaurants for like 30 years, particularly this one in Louisiana that he really made sure to give a shout out to them and says he's going to continue to work in the industry. He's so sweet. He really, sadly, his mom recently passed away, and he talked a lot about her and got very emotional, saying how she was his biggest fan and all these things, and even that she sent him that final ace ace that won him the title.
That's sweet. You've seen probably the social media posts where it's hashtag for Linda. Yeah, as I was reading those, I was like, this dude wins this event like 92% of the time. Like people who have motivation that's deeper than just poker and money tend to do really well. It's same thing with sports. Like when there's some backstory that's like a real, like something that pulls in your heartstrings, it's like those people just have motivation to tap into that you just can't get from like regular ambition, I think.
Totally. It's such a good story and could have happened to a nicer guy. So at this point, the heads up match was meant to be kicking off, I believe, tomorrow, December. I forget what date it is. But
this is very poker player of us where we're just like, Nebuary? I don't know. Like, what day is it? I literally don't know what day it is until it's almost Sunday. And I'm like, okay, lots of tournaments are coming.
Yeah. What day is Sunday? Count backwards from there.
Yeah.
So Damien obviously had to postpone his flight because there were some travel restrictions because I'm sure you guys have heard there's a second strain of COVID-19 in the UK. And because of that, I believe Europe as a whole has really shut down basically. And so he is managing to get over here. The other thing to talk about is that he's going to have a wicked jet lag. And frankly, I don't know how he's going to play with the week he's had. And then he's going to have 30 hours once he lands. And then he's going to hop into this heads up match. It's crazy.
That is crazy, but at least it's a free roll. I'm like, that's pretty cool of GG to give $1 million to the prize pool. Because then even with all the like craziness and the travel and the restrictions and pushing it back and whatever, it's like you're getting to play for $1 million with no buy-in. Like, so I would jump through a lot of hoops for that opportunity.
Totally, yeah. So let's get into the COVID-19 controversy because this is what everyone's been talking about. Literally everybody in poker Twitter has been chiming in with an opinion. One of the final 9, I guess you can call it the December 9, not the November 9, did test positive for COVID-19 and was disqualified in 9th place money. Pesh De Silva. Do you know him at all personally?
Yeah, I just know lots of friends in common. We're not friends, but he's a really experienced player. He has 3 bracelets already. He's a pain in the ass to play against. Like I've just heard people pick out like that he's someone who's like it feels like there's 5 good pros at your table if he's sitting there because he's very active and just a pain to play with. So him testing positive and not playing like changes the landscape of the whole final table, even though he was coming in 8 of 9. It's just one double up and then like he's very dangerous to play against. So, I'm sure nobody at the final table wanted this to happen to anyone. But also it's hard not to feel like if you're someone who's worried about this dude doubling up and like running you over, it's hard for them not to just probably feel like a bit of relief for getting a huge pay jump and getting to play. But I don't know how to feel about the whole thing because it's like this was the kind of thing where when it came up a month or 2 ago, whenever they first announced, everyone's like, yeah, one foreseeable result is that someone gets sick and they end up losing out on like a few $100,000 in equity, and what a nightmare. And that's what everyone plays for, is the chance to get deep in a tournament and play for the $1.5 million. You don't play to try to 10x your money unless you're playing like a super high roller or something like that. Like you're playing for top prize. So it sucks. Like it sucks, especially if he was someone who was like staying home. Like there's a good chance a lot of poker players who are playing online just chill at home. They have no reason to travel. If he actually like contracted COVID in his travels to the final table, I mean, like that sucks. And that's what people were worrying about so much when this first came out. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts in general are that they were very clear in the beginning that if you test positive for COVID-19, you will be disqualified and receive 9th place money. Everyone was clear about that, and a lot of people were very vocal publicly that they didn't approve of that or think that was fair. I also am in that camp that I don't think it's fair. It's like, it's like a guy who's like, I'm going to cheat on you. And he's like, well, I told you, you knew, I told you I was going to cheat on you. And you're like, but it's still shitty. I didn't think you were actually going to go through with it. So, Yeah, it's just shit. I mean, we're going to go through a bunch of takes that different regs had on what WSOP should do in the situation. I do want to mention that Pesh did mention he had minimal symptoms, of course. He didn't really even know he was sick. There also is the thing to consider about the false positives for the tests.
That's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. Definitely talk about that. Like, the tests aren't 100% accurate. So it's not only the risk that you contract this on your way to the final table, it's that the day that you go to get tested, you get a false positive. Let's say it's only 10% or something like that. That's just a lot. Like, these are things like poker tournaments are hard enough already. Then you factor in that like all this bad shit can happen to you if you play it and you're lucky enough to final table it. You have such a sweat. There's so much anxiety about that, about sitting there waiting for your test result and finding out that you don't get to play for $1.5 million. Like, I don't know. I get it. Like, I feel like these are still worthwhile to hold. I understand that this year, like, nothing is perfect. Like, there's everything sucks. Like, my friends, I look at my friends on a computer screen on Zoom. Like, this sucks. You make the best of it. I think WSOP and GG were making the best of it. I just think that, like, maybe the final table should have just been online. Just go, whatever, there's another online event. If you wanted to have the heads up match, like, the heads up match part is really cool. If you want to do that because you're just providing value, you're giving $1 million and you're incentivizing two people to travel to play against each other, I feel like that would be pretty cool and still have a live component to it. But just, oh my God, the sweat of making the final table and not knowing if you're going to get a positive test or a false positive test and having that much money ride on it is just like kind of sickening. I feel anxiety thinking about what that would be like the week before.
Of course. And I only can imagine that these guys were super careful. I mean, I'm sure Pesh, and I'm not sure if he's addressed how he thinks he got it, but I'm sure he was super careful. Not that that matters that much. You can get COVID very easily, but I want to see so Joey Ingram, our resident investigator, posted a video the night before the main event was to happen. This is Sunday night. And he put some options out there. He said the options are postponing it, playing it online, having the other players come together and agree to postpone it, an ICM payout, play online until Pesh busts, or nothing. I also saw somebody throw out there that the remaining players could give him a 1% free roll of their tournament, which I think is even more optimistic. But yeah.
And then I thought this one was very sweet, but also very, very misguided for like what our poker community is really like. Ryan Lang, who's a total sweetheart, he's a CLC coach, and he is a big like animal rescuer, just like a very kind-hearted person. He said, would be a pretty great gesture if the other 8 final tablists all agreed to postpone at least a couple of days to see if Padua and Pesh test negative and WSP should pay for rooms at Rio for anyone who traveled from out east. I mean, that is like adorable, but it's never happening. Like, you can't get 8 people to say, I'm going to do something against my best interests. It could have happened to them. Like, there's so many reasons that someone, even if they have the inclination to do something that kind for someone else, they'll say, you know, maybe he took risk that I didn't take and that's why he got it. Or if I showed up sick, is anyone doing this for me? Like, probably not. Like, a lot of reasons why 8 people are just they're never coming together and making this decision. And like I had mentioned to you that there are shining spots in our poker community. Like, someone will be late for a heads up match and a pro will sit there and wait, or someone will disconnect and another player will wait there. They'll sit out, or they'll like let the blinds just pay each other or whatever. That's happened in high equity spots, but that's one person making a decision. They don't have to convince 7 other people. I think Ryan's tweet is very nice. I think that's happening almost 0% of the time.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider too is that, so okay, they postpone it, and then someone else is positive.
Yep.
Or whatever. Patrick Leonard, who initially came out and said very strongly that they should postpone it and do the right thing. He said, story time, the year is 2020. Basically, we've postponed the event. And hand 1, Pesh opens and makes a trademark Pesh jam and busts a ninth. Imagine that pressure. Every time Pesh considers a bluff or bluff catching or jamming pre as so much pressure, would for sure be bluffing through betting him in every spot. Some sick ICM going in there. I mean, it's true. It's imagine if they did postpone and then he just comes back and busts first hand. It would be crazy. It's a bit unrealistic, but again, they knew exactly what they were getting into, and he just ran bad. He just ran bad.
Yeah, it's baked in, right? It's priced in at this point. That's why, like, I kind of appreciated that a month or so ago when it was announced, that people were basically explaining how they felt about it, that this was a possibility, that this has to be something that a pro or a rec player considers when putting the 10K on the table here. That that something really bad can happen and that you can end up in this spot. And if you still choose to play, you still choose to play. And yeah, it really does suck that Pesh ends up in this spot. But, I do have to agree with the people who say when you're buying in, you've accepted that this is a possibility. You've accepted that you're going to have to take on risk in order to get to this final table. And it sucks to experience the bad side of variance here, but for poker players, it's always a cost benefit analysis. And each of these players made that analysis and decided to play.
Yeah. I think Berkey had an interesting tweet saying something too, that he thinks the outcry wouldn't be as strong if it wasn't Pesh, who is, I don't know him personally, but is apparently so loved by the poker community. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think also his chances are good. I think that matters too, is if it's a rec player who has 8 big blinds, maybe everyone just goes, this guy's probably going to get close to 7th to 9th place money almost all the time. No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Pesh is such a dangerous player. He's closed 3 WSOP events already. He's not going to make mistakes. He plays a ton online with good success. So there were a lot of articles leading up to this saying that, Pesh doesn't have a ton of chips, but he's one of the favorites to win and all this. So there's all this buildup around him. So I think that definitely makes it worse. The fact that he's a recognizable name with a very legit chance of taking it down. I don't know. I'm going to have to agree with you because the GG side of it, and the 9th place player didn't show up, chose not to, and there wasn't, there's not 5 podcasts and 10 articles written about it. So there's probably some truth to that.
Totally. I did want to point out while we're talking about some good news, one of the final table lists, Gershon Distenfeld, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that, was one of the final table lists. I believe he got 8th, and he is a successful financier from New York, and he actually donated 100% of his earnings to charity, various charities, and he's a recreational player who got involved in the moneymaker era, and not only did he donate all of it to charity, but he's got some friends in high up places. I think ESPN did a little thing on him, which is just great publicity for us as well. This is another silver lining to this event. We're getting these big name recreational players who are getting mainstream attention and helping out some good causes. So this is actually one of the best story that's come out of this, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And, Pesh is at home being like, yo, man, you could donate it to me. It's like, what the fuck?
Exactly. He's like, fuck the kids in need.
And sorry if I made fun of Ryan, but I just feel like it's so someone's like, I think 8 people are going to do something just like so against their interest for the sake of someone else. I wish I still had that view. I wish that in my mind there's something being like, I think they're all going to do the right thing. It's not even necessarily the right thing. If you think that it wouldn't be done for you, then as a poker player, you really can't do it. You can't. You're just giving up too much EV that will never return to you. And I understand why nobody did that. Also, WSOP and GG and ESPN have a schedule. They have to tape. They have to film. They might not even allow that to happen. I'm not really sure, but there's so many roadblocks to anything like that ever coming together that it's really something that we can't really even consider.
Yeah, and just to segue here, I kind of wanted to give you guys an update on Stoyan. His last names, Magic Kadnevev? I don't know. I can't pronounce it. Sorry, Stoyan.
I'm sure that's it. I'm sure you nailed it.
I nailed it. He got first in the 5K. I don't even know what you want to call it at this point. The first main event, the 5K first main event on GG back in July. And he did an interview with Us Poker, and he's understandably still tilted about the situation. He did play this event. He did reach out to WSOP to try to get some clarity on the situation, did not hear back. He threw out the possibility that although he would not be happy about it, he would consider playing these two in a three-way. Even though it's like he won, he got a bracelet, he got a certificate in the mail. For all intents and purposes, he thinks he won. I played that event too. You did too. I thought I was playing the main, as did we all.
Yeah, I didn't play that one because I'm not leaving the country to play the GG.
But you played the WSOP version though.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you didn't.
No, I had a similar take. I had a similar take to Olivier Bousquet, who put on Twitter, I didn't play the 10K fake main event. One major reason was because I wanted to avoid this possibility. The idea was ridiculous and the stated rules were terrible, but they should not change them now under any circumstances whatsoever. Unfair to anyone who saw this coming. I played some satellites into it. A 10K online is a lot, and I would have had to sell half, and I wasn't sure the value was there. It did turn out to be way more people than I thought, so I did have a little bit of FOMO. But there is this feeling of, if it's a close decision anyway, and then you keep finding these strikes against, which are like, maybe you don't believe in the concept, maybe you don't want people risking getting COVID, whatever it is, like, there are always more events, and that's how I felt. I was like, I'm not crazy about this idea. But I do agree with that take, though. When the rules are stated, you can't change them, because let's say that there is more to it, that me and you make this final table and you go out and have drinks with friends because you're like, I made the final table, yay, and like, you took a risk I wouldn't have taken. You knew the rules, I knew the rules, I just sat there in a bubble. I showed up as like bubble boy on the plane. It sucks. The whole thing sucks. Like, I don't want to get too hard on GG and WSP though, because like, this year sucks. They are both companies that are trying to make something happen. A lot of people did play. A lot of people got some short-term employment surrounding this with bloggers, reporters, commentators, hosts, everything. The people who had to set up the sound set at the Amazon. Like, there's a lot of people who need work right now. There are positives to this event having taken place. But yeah, like, you can't change the rules. That was the thing. It's like, I think one of my main problems with the original rules was that the person coming in who gets sick should have been blinded out, like in any other situation. Someone getting into a car accident on the way there gets blinded out, but someone testing positive for COVID gets their stack removed. What if you have 5 times the starting stack, the stack of anyone else at the final table? You get 9th because you were unlucky. Like, you fell to variance where someone else didn't. That's crazy. And I think that's something that could have been changed. Yes, it looks bad on ESPN. It looks bad to have a stack there blinding out, but that's the year we're living in. We're living in a year with COVID where a lot of bad stuff happened to a lot of people who didn't deserve it. And it's understandable that we held this event. This person's going to take home 90K instead of what their expected value is, whatever. And then maybe they ladder up twice. They had a lot of chips. Other people are still going to be playing poker because they have to, or they're going to blind down. I feel like that was the major point for me where I was thinking this is not how I would have run the event, but otherwise, I don't know.
So a lot of people said from the get-go this was just a big money grab, all about money. I did see today, which is Tuesday, Poker News did a stream, and they were saying on there that it's not about money because they added $1 million, they paid for this whole production. What do you think about that? And I mean, what do you think the motivation was? Do you think it was?
I would have to see the breakdown of how much Rake was collected and what's going on, what the contracts look like between GG and ESPN, which way the money's flowing. I'm not a business person, so I don't really know how that all works. I would be surprised if they lost money on the event. it's brand boosting either way, that you're going to be a GG branded event for WSOP on ESPN. A lot of eyes tend to see stuff like that. So that's like intangible value that we can't really calculate. I'm not sure. I think it's cool that they added the million. I think that takes a little bit of the, like, people on Twitter say it's a money grab. It's all they're saying. But, giving back $1 million is pretty cool for the players. And I don't know. I'm not sure. I do think that some of the motivation, though, is just that, like, they want to have this event that if this is still the same next year, let's say that vaccines are completely slow, and that next year we're facing the same kinds of things that we're facing right now. Like, maybe they run this again. Maybe they make some tweaks for the stuff that didn't work at all. I don't know.
We interrupt this podcast with an important message from our sponsors at Run It Once. Run It Once Poker is excited to announce that weekly SNG Select leaderboards are back. From now until January 10th, we'll be hosting 4 SNG leaderboards broken down by specific stakes, with 100 positions earning a cash prize. And that's not all. We've also got leaderboards for the cash game crowd. We've got 3 No Limit Hold'em leaderboards and 4 Pot Limit Omaha leaderboards broken down by specific stakes, with 185 positions earning a cash prize. In total, we're putting up over €15,000 in prizes each week. For full details, head to once.run/leaderboards. That's once.run/leaderboards. And if you're looking to improve your game, head on over to Run It Once Training, where you'll find the largest library of high-quality poker training content on the web, with 2 new videos posted daily from an incredible stable of some of the greatest minds in the game, including Run It Once founder Phil Galfond. Sign up today at once.run/learn, and you'll get free access to 3 of our elite-level videos. And now, back to the pod.
We were just talking about this a little bit before we started rolling, and I think it's an interesting topic, and we kind of have different opinions on it, which is nice because we agree too much. When this first came out, we mentioned earlier that a lot of regs and people in general were very vocal about it being unethical, a money grab, messed up with Stoyan, all kinds of harsh criticisms. And yet most of them and most people played it. What do you think about that?
I think that it's not always black and white with things like this. I think that you can make a decision as a poker player that an event is worthwhile to play, that you see that there's EV in playing, and you can say also, I disagree with the way you're doing it. You can say on Twitter loudly and proudly that you think this event should be held in this way, that it's a joke the way that they're doing it, that, having to travel for a final table that was played mostly online during a pandemic is stupid. That if you can have a false positive. You can make a list of everything you hate about the event and then sit down and look at it and say, okay, my expected value in this 10K event is $18,000. The 8K I'm going to make in this event, is it worth it for me to take this amount of risk? Like, I don't have a family. I'm not going to infect other people. Maybe it's worth it. I think it's completely fine. I don't think it's hypocritical to complain about things you think are changeable, to tag the company that has the chance to change them, do everything you can, and then still decide to play the event. Like, if you are someone who can afford to sit it out, you don't think it's totally worth it to play, or it's such an ethical problem for you, you think this is the worst thing that anyone in poker has ever done, and it's so ethically bad that even if you have 100% ROI in this tournament, you need to sit out, then that's totally fine. But I don't think it's that bad to complain on Twitter, try to get it changed, realize you can't get it changed, and then still play. I don't think that that's a problem, and I don't know. Like, I know me and you disagree about that.
Yeah, I mean, my take is that I said this earlier, but I think there's a difference between criticism and outrage, and like I was saying earlier, for example, High Stakes Poker just started, and I have a criticism of them that I think the graphics are kind of bad and they're really bulky, whatever. And so that's something I would get on Twitter or just DM them and be like, hey, so here's some feedback for you, whatever. Like, this ruins the show. Not ruins it, but like makes it bad. But there's a difference between that and like, you know, going back to like even the Dan Bilzerian thing, it's like, if you feel so strongly that you're using language like, this is like deteriorating the fabric of poker, and this is so bad for poker, and you're so outraged and you're so whatever, and then you go play it, it's like, to me it just feels I don't know, actions speak louder than words to me. So if you're really upset, you know, to go on strike or to sacrifice some, like, it's not a strike, it's not a movement unless you're sacrificing something. So if there was no value anyways, and you just sit out because there's no value, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm sitting out of this tournament, that's shit anyways, that doesn't really make as bold of a statement. It's like, you know, if you sit out of a high value tournament because you feel so strongly about this, I have a lot of respect for you. You know, you stand behind what you believe in, you sacrificed value. It's like a hunger strike. You fucking like sacrifice something, you know what I mean? But if you, I don't know, it's just like actions speak louder than words. And I just think that it would have, I think that either don't say anything, or maybe it's the language. Maybe if they're just like, hey, you know, you guys could have done better here. I don't really understand it. Whatever. But people come out and they're so bold with it. They're so bold. And they just start throwing daggers. And I'm just like, okay, well, like, are you going to follow through? And they don't. And I'm just like, then your words are meaningless, really. But
my issue with it, just a little background on me. When Sheldon Adelson came out super strongly against online poker and was basically throwing millions of dollars into getting it or keeping it banned for as long as he possibly could while running his casino and raking in all these millions and millions of dollars, I stopped playing at Venetian. I was really strong about it. I would post about it. I would post on 2+2. I would talk about any podcast that I could. And I just felt like, how can we possibly give any money to someone who's actively working against our interests as a community? I, at first, was trying to convince other people not to play. And I kept being met with specific, my dogs are having MMA matches. Sorry. If you hear a bunch of growling, that's not Marley. There were a lot of people that took, they weren't upset with me for having the stake, but they were just saying, I have a family. You don't understand why I need to play at this very soft place. A lot of pros are sitting out. They're boycotting. This is the one place I can go to make money. My backer makes me play here. This is the only tournament I'm allowed to play. There were things like that made me just realize that not everyone has the luxury of always voting with their money. Not everyone has the luxury to sit out when their morals tell them that they should probably sit out of something. I'm sure that's happening a lot online. If this event is the softest 10K online event ever, there are backing stables that are saying you are playing this event and these people would like to play the event. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it where you can feel one way, you can tweet about it, you can voice your opinion, you can try to be like an activist against the tournament being run in a certain way and still play it without being a hypocrite in my mind. I think it's hard. I don't know what a good answer is if you want to be someone who works to change something while still participating in it. I think that's a really reasonable stance to have, to say, like, I'm part of this community. I want to participate in the biggest events in this community, but I also want to have a voice and be able to say what my concerns are and possibly change some people's minds. Like Phil Galfon's a really good example of this, where he's very reasonable. All his takes are reasonable, and he's able to kind of sway like the poker community's opinion one way or the other by having these reasonable takes, not by going out and saying, this is a travesty, I am outraged, I'm never going to put my money into this thing, and then plays it. Like, he's never that guy. He's the guy who just says, like, this is my take on this, I think we can do better, and here's how. And I think there needs to be more of that and less of the like purity test for everything. Like, oh, you had this opinion and then you played, you're a bad person, or like you're disingenuous. I don't think it's like that. And I think this is one spot where like having a bunch of opinions heading GG and WSP's direction, where they get to see how players feel about this. And maybe when there's going to be more events like this in the future, I'm sure, until COVID is over, and maybe they have a better feel for what is acceptable and what people want after this.
Totally. I mean, I guess my response to the Venetian thing is that it's different because you have a stance and you follow through on it. They have a stance, which, by the way, I don't judge. If you have a backer who's like playing this, I don't like Venetian either. I was the same as you. I don't play Venetian. I never step foot in that place. But I don't have any judgment or hatred to people who have to or do or find the value in it. But I just find it like pick a lane. You know, you can't be a vegan and tweet out all this stuff about animal rights and then eat meat and be like, oh, well, I can't, it's all they sell at supermarket. It's I have to eat it. It's like, well, you're and not only are you tweeting out, but then you're shaming me for eating meat, and then you're eating meat. And then you say, oh, well, I have to because it's only I can afford, right? All I can afford is McDonald's. Okay, I don't judge you for that, but don't shame me and come out with this like big, moral stance. If you're not willing to really step up to the plate and do it, I just think pick a lane and either be with it or don't be with it. But what was I going to say? But to your point,
I think our main point of disagreement probably isn't that big because I would also be annoyed if someone took like, I have the moral high ground and I would never do this thing and you shouldn't do this thing and then they do the thing. I don't think that's like what I mean with my argument. It's just, I think people should be able to criticize something they're still going to participate in. I think it's totally fine. I think it's like the only way to change anything is to just put up reasonable arguments for why things should be a little bit different. And then, Gigi reads it and they go, okay, maybe Phil Galfond has a point here and maybe we'll change it a little bit. I think hurting yourself by boycotting when there's no organized boycott. This is where I was a fucking moron. I was like, I'm boycotting Venetian. I'm not going to Venetian. I was trying to get people to come with me. I had no real voice or say or influence over others. So maybe a couple people would be like, I think she's right. But then we're just sitting out the softest tournaments. Everyone else is still playing. Mm-hmm. The regs who are paying Rake to a place that's completely against their self-interest are now playing in soft tournaments there because regs are sitting out. It was just like not that smart. And I don't know. I just think I don't expect people to make choices like that. I don't think that they are ever really hurting the company as much as they're hurting themselves. I think poker's a really hard thing to succeed at right now. And if someone wants to go play something while also trying to change what they think is wrong with it, I don't think there's a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, to the boycotting thing, I think you're right. I mean, again, like I agree that about all these things. I just think that people come out so strong with like, again, like with like Gigi, it's like, oh, this is awful. Like we cannot stand for this. This is like the death. We need to get rid of him. Like he is or whatever. And then they play, or like, it's like, if you feel that strongly, you better fucking sit at home. It is good value. It does hurt us. I agree with all these things you're saying. And there is power in numbers. And frankly, what is one person really going to do? You're right about all that. But at the end of the day, it's like, don't be strong about something in such an intense way unless you are willing to stand behind it. Like have principle.
One last thing that I wanted to cover about this, because it's gossipy and whatever. We're having solo pod right now. It's gossip time.
Yeah.
So some added controversy to this Pesh being taken out in 9th place, DQ'd for being sick. Matt Stout at Matt Stout Poker says, feel bad for Padawan Pesh because he got DQ'd from the WSOP main event final table for having COVID. Don't. It's karma. My friend witnessed him multi-counting the other WSOP.com events as Pinot, but refused to report him. Retweet for awareness. And he tags the WSOP TD. I have a lot of thoughts on this. My first thought is like, yes, like multi-counting is very bad. Every person who plays poker in this day and age knows that multi-counting is bad. We've seen people get banned from sites for it. It's a shitty thing to do. Your opponents don't know they're playing many of you. And, whatever. Like, I know that people get accused of this a lot, of taking their girlfriend's account or starting an account for their family and playing on it. My main thing, though, is that if you can't prove this allegation, because it's a secondhand allegation, like he's saying his friend witnessed him multi-accounting, I don't know how you go about putting this on Twitter and tagging WSOP TD. I would feel, if I witnessed it myself and it wasn't someone just like standing behind someone being like, oh man, I fooled there. Like there's things like that happen all the time. If I saw someone actually playing a different account, it's like, if you're going to tell on them, whatever, you're well within your right, maybe you should. That's one thing, but like putting this out in the Twitter sphere when you didn't witness it yourself and you don't really know, like, what if the other person just like mistook Pesh for someone else, or like doesn't have his facts straight, or has something personal against Pesh where he just wants to, like, while he's down, just kick him one more time. I don't know. Like, I don't think I'm sharing this when this is a secondhand account. What are your takes?
It's just, to me, it's very similar to the Veronica thing. It's very similar to Me Too. Anytime you're coming out with an allegation that's potentially going to ruin someone's life, their livelihood, their reputation, you better be damn sure that you have a firsthand account of that situation. And this is no different. I mean, being accused of cheating, multi-counting, is a huge deal in poker. And like you said, I don't know the specifics of it, but yeah, if there's any, it's tough because you want to out people, but if you have any doubt, you shouldn't. I've told you this earlier, but my take on it too is that he obviously didn't just learn about it this second. And so again, it's with the Twitter thing. It's so easy to kick people when they're down. Obviously, Pesh is in a vulnerable state, and he chooses now to release this information and basically throw salt on the wound on the guy. Whether or not it's true, I don't want to speculate on that, but I think it's a little malicious, it's a little bullying, it's a little mob mentality on the guy, and I question the true motives. If he really just wants to save us from a potential cheater in his mind, or if he's just like, how can I add fuel to the fire here? Because that's just the nature of Twitter, and I don't even necessarily blame him. That's just what social media breeds sometimes, and I think that might be a little bit of what's happening here.
Yeah, it's a weird thing too. It would be one thing if the guy's at the top of the world. He is the chip leader of the final table. He doesn't have COVID. He's got a great chance of winning and being main event champion for $1.5 million, whatever. That was kind of just my take, was reading it. I was like, dude, this guy is experiencing right now probably one of the shittier moments of his poker life. Just feeling the anxiety of testing positive, then having it actually come true. The disappointment, the like unfairness that he's probably feeling right now. And then you're like, by the way, he's a scumbag cheater who multi-accounted. I heard from my friend. I don't think Stout's takes are usually like this. I think there's a weird one. And, you know, everyone has their own pet peeves. And like, I understand that. There was a time when I was living in Rosarito where people were very consumed with this idea of ghosting, and the fact that there could be stables that are basically like stack mining because the best players will just ghost whenever someone gets deep. I worried about that a lot. I thought equity was being stolen from a lot of people. This is a legit thing to be pissed about. Stout's not crazy for being pissed if this is true. I just think he is a little crazy for posting something without having seen it with his own two eyes. And after having pressured the guy who told him about it, and the guy said, I don't want to come forward. When that happens, I would think maybe this wasn't true. Maybe the guy's not 100% sure he saw what he says he saw. Whatever. I don't know. Like, I just think that that's not good enough for me to go try to like ruin someone who's already like experiencing a horrible thing right now. And I mean, that's what people are saying back. Like, if you read the comments, like people are like, basically, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, everyone is just, I don't know. It doesn't help Matt that like Pesh is a pretty well-liked dude, and that, I don't know, he's got a lot of friends. I think outing cheaters when you have firsthand information is really, really good. It still takes balls. Like, I think it's really hard to do that because you're going to get a lot of pushback. And then also people are going to respond with, oh, you've never done anything wrong in your life, or people will bring up everything wrong you've ever done in your life that they know about. So like, it is a thing where it's like, it's hard. You're going to experience a lot of like shitty things if you come out with it yourself. But this is one where I would just not. I was like, maybe you pressure the guy who's got firsthand info more to come out, but like posting it yourself, I just wouldn't have done it.
Agreed. Anyways, I'm trying to think if we've covered everything. There's been so much that's developed here with this, guys. So just to recap, the final heads-up match for $1 million free roll will be happening, I believe, January 3rd. Don't quote me on that. And potentially, I saw someone else tweeted, is this going to be the 2020 main event winner or 2021? Because it will typically be the next year. So I don't know, but that's going to be happening. What are your thoughts looking forward? Are we going to see a regular June WSOP this year?
I don't know. I think it really depends how things keep going, because from what I've seen, I haven't played a single hand of live poker since maybe February, probably February. I won't be playing if there's still a bunch of people sick. Like, Vegas has been pretty bad. Like, we're not taking it too seriously. So I think it's probably a really bad spot to hold a huge event where a lot of people fly in from everywhere. But I think they probably will end up holding one if the nation still sees turnouts like they have. No one's avoiding it. Like, everyone's playing poker. So if that's the case, I don't expect WSOP to forego a bunch of rake money because they're like worried about people getting sick. I think they're probably going to provide the product that people want. And if people come out in droves, they're going to have a regular event. I think turnout will be down because there are going to be people who are worried on a very reasonable level. Like, if you're over the age of 60, if you're obese, if you have any lung problems, if you've had cancer, you're going through treatment for something, that's going to be some percentage of the field. They probably should stay home.
They've been out. I've seen them out. When I see them out, I'm like, you should not be here.
Yeah.
The other factor is just the vaccine. The vaccine is here. What stage will it be by then? And also, will you need to prove that you've gotten it to play?
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I don't know how people are going to like that. I don't think they're going to like that. If you had to be like, here, I have this thing on my phone that says I'm good. Like, people really don't like the big brother kind of control.
Totally. Yeah. But nothing stands between a man and his 1,500 millionaire maker. I'll tell you that. And I'll tell you something right now. It certainly ain't ethics, and it certainly ain't politics. He's playing that $1,500 million maker, and he will bitch about it, and he will be upset about it, but they will be there in line, I think.
That would be, dude, I don't know if there's a sadder thing in the world if someone like dies to play Colossus.
Well, okay, full disclosure, I wanted to make this video back like in this, I don't even know when, in the summer, about man dies after winning poker tournament, says it was worth it. Because he
says it was worth it.
Like, he gives an interview, and he wins like $600, and he's like, and she, whatever, and he dies in the interview. He starts like convulsing and just like dies. And Spraggy vetoed. Well, Spraggy didn't veto it. He was just like, might be too soon. But full disclosure, that was it. That was in the draft spin. But I mean, honestly, because it's not even that far fetched. Because literally people are out there getting their $2 an hour comps and being like, this is worth it. It's crazy.
Also, I have like I think a slightly different perspective. 6 months ago, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. When they start saying the vaccine's going to take really long to roll out, I was like, oh my God, it's a long time. Like, it could be, we've sat on our asses for 9 months. It could be another 9 months, could be another year. And you do start feeling like, okay, I can add this like slightly, I can add this thing back to my life, and I'll go hiking with my friends because we're outside, or I'll do this thing, like I'll go ice skating and wear a mask. You do start making these little compromises so you don't lose your damn mind sitting inside. I think some people's process of losing it and being stir crazy is just so much shorter than mine. Like, I have friends who are like 3 months ago being like, I am not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything, and now they're like in line at the 400 Venetian, like touching people and stuff. It's like, I don't know, everyone everyone's brain is different. Even my grandma's mid-90s. I want to put her in a little bubble and nobody touch her and everyone just wave to her. I don't want her. And she went for Christmas and hung out with my sister-in-law's a teacher who interacts with kids, but she's in her mid-90s and she was like, I'm not spending my last couple of years at home by myself, not doing it. And I'm like, it makes me very nervous. I'm scared, but also it's her choice. It's her life. Like there's definitely people like that who are going to play poker. They're like, WSOP is my dream. I'm playing in it. They don't care what their percent chances of getting affected. And it's like, I don't know.
I'll tell you this. Spraggy's got a grandmother, his last grandparent alive. She's 86. She was in Germany during World War II. She's German. Mm-hmm. She got TB when she was like 9. She was on her deathbed with TB and she survived it. And I'll tell you something right now. This to her is like, she looks at COVID and she's like, what are you even talking? I survived Nazi Germany. I survived TB. I survived 86 years with your grandfather. This does not scare me. There's something about old people, like, even though they're vulnerable, they're fucking bad. The things that they've survived, Spanish flu, all these things that just killed half the population. And they were like, this is child's play. So
yeah, but I want to have a talk with her about variants and be like, yo, half those people died. You didn't, but also maybe you were lucky. Doesn't mean you got the immune system to withstand this like horrible disease. I don't know. Whatever. People can do whatever the hell they want, but also
it's funny.
I can't imagine just going to WSOP and having it be normal. I miss it so much. I wish the vaccine just like was widespread. Everyone's cool. We show up like end of May ready for summer camp. I want nothing more than that. That would be amazing. I miss people so much. It's crazy because I'm an alone time person. And I'm like, right now, I'm just like, I would love to sit at a poker table with strangers and hear their bad beat stories and try to win $600. That sounds wonderful. And yeah, like I understand the people who played the GGWSP event. I'm like, I get it. I think you wanted to show up, make a final table, be on ESPN, act like everything's normal, win $1 million, all that. Like it makes sense to me. I understand it completely.
Yeah.
It sucks for Pesh. They almost escaped it. Like only one guy got sick. Can you imagine if there's like 4 stacks, they just go like, Zoop.
Can you imagine if it was like everybody except for one and he just won by default? That would have been sick. He just wins by default.
Yeah. I mean, that would be wild.
Anyways.
So yeah, I guess it could have been worse. But yeah, that kind of wraps up our takes on that, unless you had anything you wanted to add. We just pretty much, I don't know, whatever. This year, I want to put like an asterisk next to every opinion I have too, because it's always like through the lens of this year really sucks. And like people have to try to do things. Like people want to run a company still. People want to play poker still. So even the opinions I have where I'm like, well, that doesn't seem very smart to do that. Or like, maybe you should have done this better. It always is with the caveat that like, everyone's doing their best in a spot that really sucks. Like you just have to make decisions that you don't want to make, that you normally would not have to make. I never have to go, oh, maybe I'll get really sick with a potentially deadly disease if I want to play this tournament. That has never crossed my mind before. Maybe it should have, because I have played at some very dusty stops where where the risk of death perhaps was greater than 0%.
Or at least getting herpes. But
anyway, the Taj, that's the place that comes to mind. I once picked up my drink and it had a bloody Band-Aid stuck to the bottom of it. Yep, rest in peace, Taj.
Dude, that's not to totally like go on a tangent, but I'm getting my engagement ring. It's being made, and I told the guy, I was like, I need something nice that I can wear to like a nice restaurant, but I need to be able to wear it at like Bally's and like the Taj, and like I can't have something too nice because I'm always in these shitty places that if I have this really nice ring,
you're a target then.
I'm a target. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was my qualifications for that.
That's great.
Anyways.
Maybe you just turn it around. Maybe you could have one where like the band on the inside looks like a regular ring, so that when you're at the shitty places, you just put the diamond on the inside and turn it around and be like, this isn't worth a lot. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, this was great.
Yeah, hopefully this year, hopefully 2021 has some normalcy to it and we don't have to discuss, the best ways to avoid getting sick while trying to play the main event. That would be cool. I have some hope. I'm just not 100% optimistic that this summer is going to be normal.
I'm not optimistic this year is going to be normal, frankly. You know, the WSOP is the least of our problems. Spraggy can't even come into the States right now. I would love, we're dealing with that. There's so many things that we need to have happen before we can worry about playing the, daily deep stack. So,
yep.
Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. If there's more takes that you guys have, because stuff is going to come out. I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to do anything for Pesh or what's going to happen, if the heads up match is still going to take place. I'm sure it will at some point. I know there's been some travel issues. If you guys find out some stuff that we don't know about this, it would be cool to read them in the comments. But until next time, stay safe. What else you got?
Happy New Year. Hope you had a great holiday. Hope you had a great time with your family or Zoom meeting family or friends. I was here I was actually hungover on Christmas by myself, just licking my wounds with my cat. But I hope you guys had a good holiday as best you can. So we'll see you next week. And I'm sure by then there'll be more drama with the story. We'll be the first to do it.
Sounds good.
Bye, guys.